friends. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. I'm in one hell of a good mood today because a lot of stuff is going on, and I think this is going to be a great episode of the podcast. I don't know how long this one's going to go. Might not be a long one, but I do want to get some stuff on the record here. I want to offer a little bit of context, a little bit of clarity, and certainly some information to the people who are wondering what the hell is going on. And there's a lot going on. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about something that I don't often talk about for a number of reasons, namely the Freedom Convoy. I'm going to talk about Tamara Leach and Chris Barber in this episode. I have to. A serious injustice is about to be done here, and I got to talk about this. So today, you're going to hear some Freedom Convoy stuff. And before I get to it, part of the reason I don't talk about it is because the Freedom Convoy is a very divisive issue. There's still people out there who feel very strongly one way or the other about the Freedom Convoy. Some people feel that was completely out of line, that they were breaking the law and they were nuisance protesters and they didn't have a point anyway, and whatever it is that they feel about it. They feel it was a bunch of redneck truckers that were just trying to have a party and piss everybody off. Okay, that's a perspective. There's others who feel the Freedom Convoy is part of the reason that we're not still under COVID lockdowns and mandates, because of the Freedom Convoy expressing the will of the Canadian people. And I think far more than the polls show, there's a lot of people who feel that what's happening to the organizers of the Freedom Convoy is wrong. And I'm going to agree that, I'm going to agree with both sides, actually. In this episode, I'm going to agree with both sides. For very different reasons, though. So I'm going to get to the Freedom Convoy stuff. If you're passionate one way or the other, all I ask is that you please keep an open mind. I have to say something about this because I'm worried that a serious injustice is about to be done. So give me a minute. Hear me out. I need a little bit of runway here, and I'll explain exactly how I feel about this and why I think what's about to happen is wrong. There's also breaking news on the Jeffrey Epstein Files. I'm going to get to those in a few minutes, and then we're going to take a little trip together up to Cottage Country, Ontario. Beautiful Muskoka. Expensive Muskoka to have all of the country's leadership hanging out in on a little mini vacation here while they're supposed to be getting rid of inter-provincial trade barriers. So we'll do that. You're going to hear from Premier Danielle Smith from Alberta, Premier Doug Ford from Ontario, and possibly a few others. Then we're going to wrap it up with something fun and wild and bizarre. Hunter Biden, son of former U.S. President Joe Biden. Hunter has lost his mind, nearest I can tell. But we'll get to that audio coming up, and I'll tell you now, and I'll remind you before I play it, there is going to be a disclaimer on that one. I do my best to keep this podcast clean because I know that adults have got stuff to do, and occasionally there's kids in the car with them. And as much as they'd love to listen to a podcast, if there's swearing in it, that makes it a little untenable for younger ears. So I try to keep it clean, but there's just nothing I can do with this Hunter Biden audio. So give me some time here. I'll get to that, and I will warn you before the swear words come up. Let's get to the content for today. I'm going to start off with the breaking news that has to do with the Jeffrey Epstein situation. We've been told, just a quick recap, we were told about all these horrible things that Jeffrey Epstein did, and Donald Trump promised when he got elected that he would declassify those files and we would all know what's going on and what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, fast forward, for whatever reason, I'm still going on the assumption that Donald Trump now doesn't want to release those files because he's in it. I think that that's the only explanation for why Trump doesn't want these files out there is because they incriminate him. And certainly in the last number of days, there's been no shortage of pictures and videos surfacing online that shows Trump and Epstein definitely knew each other. Now, that's not a smoking gun. That does not mean he did anything with kids. It doesn't mean he went to Epstein Island. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that they were associates. And there's going to be more people along the way that were associates of Jeffrey Epstein, but not necessarily people that did anything criminal with young children. So Donald Trump, very, very hesitant and resistant to release these files all of a sudden. His attorney general basically said they don't have a smoking gun. Kash Patel, director of the FBI, said, hey, listen, the evidence that we actually have basically says Jeffrey Epstein killed himself and they don't have any more information. Well, that's not good enough for the people. Not good enough at all. We know something went on. It's perfectly reasonable, though, to assume that while President Obama was in office and while President Joe Biden was in office, the quote unquote deep state had lots and lots and lots of time and full access to be able to alter these files or just delete them altogether. So now what do? We've got the public that thinks Trump's involved and Trump's got to try and clear his name, if that's even possible. We've got an attorney general who is wildly unpopular because she's now backtracking on releasing these files after she said she had them on her desk. Now apparently there are none. Where do we go from here? Great news. The Department of Justice has released a statement saying the Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths, nor the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. The joint statement by the Department of Justice and FBI of July 6th remains as accurate today as when it was written, namely that in the recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence was uncovered that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. President Trump told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who committed crimes against the victims, the FBI and DOJ will hear what she has to say. Therefore, at the direction of Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the Department of Justice. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. That changes now. That's the statement. What does that mean? It means the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General is going to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell and flat out ask her. And this is interesting because Ghislaine holds all the cards here. She was Jeffrey Epstein's right hand. A lot of people believe she organized everything, from making sure there were girls on the island for the guys to do whatever they wanted, to inviting the guys, making their travel arrangements, the whole 9 yards. She knows, literally and figuratively, where the bodies are buried. She doesn't have to cooperate, but I assume she doesn't want to be in jail for the rest of her life. I assume it's going to take a deal of some sort to get her to talk and say what she knows. Or she could be quite content to spend time in jail and say whatever she wants, true or untrue. I don't know where this is going to go, but I feel like this is an encouraging step. And I'm led to believe already that Ghislaine Maxwell has indicated through her attorney that she is willing to talk to the Department of Justice. Again, there's going to have to be a deal. We may have to hold our nose here and give Ghislaine a real great rest of her life, whether it's in prison or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if we'd let her out, but she's going to be living a lot better if she tells the people what they want to know. We want to know who was going to the island, who was doing things with kids. Those in particular are the things we want to do. But we also want to know what Epstein was up to, who he was and who he was working for. Was he an intelligence asset? Did he work for a foreign government? What kind of dirt does he have? You know, Ghislaine's seen it all. If there actually are videos and files out there, she's seen them. She's probably in most of them. She organized most of it. This is a woman that I think has the power to blow the whole thing up. I really want to hear what Ghislaine Maxwell has to say, and I hope that they can figure out a way to get her to talk. Maybe she's just ready to do the right thing. Maybe she's been in jail long enough that she'll just tell the truth just to get it off her chest. I would be happy with that. I think it's going to take a deal, and I'm sure now this government is going to do whatever they have to do to get to the truth, because Donald Trump now knows it. Everybody knows it. This story is not going away. So I'm going to put a pin in the Epstein files for now. That's the latest. There's going to be a meeting, high-level meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, and she'll be offered the opportunity to tell the Department of Justice everything she knows. I'm curious to see how quick it's going to be. If Ghislaine Maxwell talks to Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, and she says, you know what, Pam? I saw President Bill Clinton have sex with a 7-year-old girl. I would hope that Bill Clinton is in handcuffs by the end of the day. I don't think we need to waste a whole lot of time. We all know roughly what happened here. If she confirms it, I think there should be arrests as quickly as humanly possible, because people need to see justice done, and the elites who are traveling the world doing these horrible, unthinkable things to kids, they need to know you can't get away with it and you didn't get away with it. Let's see where this one goes. That's where I'm going to leave the Epstein stuff for now. I'm actually going to play a little bit of audio before I come back and talk about the Freedom Convoy thing because I want to make sure I get that right. That's a very polarizing issue. And while I do have strong feelings on both sides of it, I want to make sure I get it right and get the balance and the tone correct, because what I'm going to say about our justice system is something that may not be popular. So that's going to happen after we talk about what's happening in Northern Ontario right now. All of the First Ministers have gotten together, and yesterday they all met with each other, and they met with some First Nations chiefs and leaders. Today, the Prime Minister comes into town, and frankly, I think all Canadians would agree it's time to stop screwing around and get something done. We've been talking about tariffs since December. And we always knew part of the solution here was making sure that we are more reliant on Canadians than we are on Americans. That includes getting our products out to market. That means making sure that we drill, baby, drill, and we have pipelines to get our natural gas and our oil out to the coast so we can ship it around the world. It means making Canada more self-sufficient and reducing these inter-provincial trade barriers. One economy, not 13. That's what Mark Carney promised. And he promised that these inter-provincial trade barriers would be done, they'd be down by Canada Day. Then he switched it to the federal inter-provincial trade barriers will be dealt with by Canada Day. Well, then that puts the premiers in the hot seat. What are we waiting for here? Because it seems like not a lot is getting done. And if we're all supposed to be Team Canada here, I don't understand what's so difficult about this. They're signing these memos of understanding. There was another one today with Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. How long until we can just say there are no more inter-provincial trade barriers? If you are in Ontario and you want to trade with Alberta, no problem, no questions asked. The government doesn't need to get involved. This shouldn't be a hard thing to do, especially with the amount of staff working on it and how much time they've had to do it. So let's find out the status of what's going on here. I'm going to play for you a little bit of a news conference that happened yesterday with Ontario Premier Doug Ford.
I'm feeling fantastic. Welcome to Huntsville. What a great town, and everyone in Ontario pulled together. I want to thank our great OPP getting up here safely, and we're just excited about our next couple days together.
Let me just pause it right there. What is going on? Why is this happening in one of the most expensive retreat resorts in the country, Deerhurst Resort? Why is that? Was it really cheaper to take over all of Deerhurst and a few other hotels in the area than just have everybody meet in Ottawa, where they've got a fully functioning airport and tons of government space that they can use for meetings? Did this really need to happen at Deerhurst? Because this seems like a colossal waste of money, if you ask me. I mean, if somebody tells me it was cheaper to go to Deerhurst than it was to just do it in Ottawa or Toronto, I guess I'll believe them. But frankly, I don't believe them. Deerhurst is not cheap. You've got all the premiers. You've got all their staff. You've got massive long motorcades from the OPP and then local police forces. You've got the media. Everybody is up there having a great old time. Well, all of us are still sitting around the rest of Canada, broke and wondering what these people are doing. I'm not saying nothing is getting done, but so far the optics of this little summertime resort retreat here for the premiers is not looking good. But let's hear some substance here. This is more of Premier Doug Ford.
You share the concerns of other premiers and suggested by the Prime Minister that whatever comes out of these trade talks with the U.S., it seems that some level of tariffs are inevitable. Is that your view at this point in time?
Well, we'll find out after our conversation with the Prime Minister. What I'm glad is that the country is united. We may differ on a few views, which is fine, but we walk out of here united as a country, as a strong, sovereign country.
But the steel measures last week, when you give it time to restructure, to kind of close the market, it sends a signal that at least on that sector, it's probably a long-term challenge. So like by August 1st, if there is no peace and the sectoral tariffs aren't gone, should Mark Carney get back, and what should Canada do?
Well, what I believe in when the steel tariffs or aluminum tariffs, we start onshoring everything. We don't make I-beams here in Ontario, but we have more cranes than the top 10 cities combined that are carrying those I-beams. And that's billions of dollars they're going to lose with aluminum cans. the beer cans, the soda cans. We're bringing companies on board that we're going to manufacture it here. So they don't have to face the 25% tariff on the way down, 25% tariff on the way back. We're encouraging all provinces and territories, start buying Canadian-made vehicles, start buying Canadian-made everything. That will hurt them more than anything at all. We're their number one customer. We do more trade. We do more trade with them, we buy more products, I should say, off the U.S. than Japan, China, Korea, UK, and France combined. So we are an economic powerhouse, and we don't have to take a backseat to anyone.
Before the Premier goes on any further, how do you feel about that sentiment? That's something that they've been beating into us since January. You got to buy Canadian. You got to buy Canadian. And I think for the most part, initially, people agreed with that sentiment. Okay, yeah, we'll just buy Canadian. But then when you actually go to the store and see the prices, you realize, yikes, it's really, really expensive to buy Canadian in some cases. I don't know that people are feeling that right now. I think people are buying whatever's cheapest. You know, Doug there, buy Canadian cars. Point me to the Canadian car manufacturer. Does he mean cars that are built in Canada? Because if he does, that might be a little bit different. But there is no Canadian car company. They're all foreign owned. They just have factories here. But they do employ people. So maybe that is what he meant by cars that are made in Ontario or made in Canada. Okay, fine. He talked about tariffs on aluminum there for the pop cans and the beer cans. You know, we want to onshore them here and get them here so they don't pay the 25% tariff going down and 25% tariff coming back, 50% tariff total. I mean, I don't want them to either, but if we dropped our counter tariffs, our retaliatory tariffs, then they wouldn't pay it when it's leaving the country. When we have tariffs, it's a tax on ourselves. So I'm not 100% sure where the Premier is going with that one, but I'm going to say that if you stop and think about it, it's not off to a great start here. But let's see if he can redeem himself.
When was the last time you spoke to Secretary Letnick? And what are we working towards on August 1st? We know some tariffs are going to be in place. So what does this deal look like? Do they have what are we working towards?
Well, we're working for a fair trade deal, and even though we have one in place already that we'll be looking at 2026, it's anything that's not on the USMCA deal that they're looking to tariff. But again, we have to unite as a country. We have a strong country. We have to diversify our trade. We have to start building pipelines out west, east, north, and south. No, it's not status quo. We need to get rid of the regulations that are taking 15 years to get critical minerals out of the ground. And we can be an economic powerhouse around the world. We have to unleash Canada, unleash Canadian industry, resources, and we can be stronger and more resilient and wealthier than any country in the world if we do that. I'm sorry. I've talked to endless Indigenous leaders. They want opportunities. They want a better life for their children. There's never been an opportunity for Indigenous communities, I'll speak for Ontario, than right now. There's $3 billion of equity we're sitting in the window that they can draw from. There's $70 million of training, $10 million of scholarships. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. This door is only open for so long, and I'm getting endless messages from chiefs around the province. I want to be part of the economic zone. We welcome them. We're going to sit down for over 3 hours tomorrow with them, and we're going to have a great conversation.
It just feels like platitudes. If I'm being honest, I like Premier Ford, I do. But it just seems like platitudes. It seems like he's just recycling the same garbage over and over again. He hasn't gone off yet and done his typical tangent about Donald Trump. Normally, Doug, like most old white men, loses their mind and comes completely unhinged anytime Donald Trump's name comes up. So far, Doug is resisting the urge to do that, but I'm not really hearing anything all that inspiring. You know, it doesn't hit the same now as it did. You know, back when our sovereignty is being threatened, we need to shop Canadian, buy Canadian, and we need to do everything we can to keep our sovereignty. I think this is where we're at now. Canadians have had enough. They're sick and tired of all of these meetings with nothing seemingly getting done. Maybe something is getting done, but I'm not aware of it. As far as I know, we're still flooded with trade barriers inter-provincially. Flooded with them. There's tons of them. We still haven't been able to figure this out. That's a big problem. I think Canadians understand our sovereignty is not at risk. Donald Trump is not coming to annex Canada. That was never a serious threat, and now it's becoming more and more obvious. I also think Canadians have seen life with tariffs, and it's not that bad. It's only tariffs on stuff that is not already covered under the USMCA agreement. That agreement gets renegotiated next year. It's just the stuff in between. I don't know that people are taking this threat all that seriously. I think for the most part, people want to see a deal get done, a deal that would be good for Canada and good for the USA. And to be honest, Donald Trump has really got to lighten up a little bit here, too. I understand that he doesn't like things like the digital services tax. He doesn't like supply management. He doesn't like our trade tactics when it comes to softwood lumber. He doesn't like a lot of different things. Okay, then why don't we just break down all of the irritants altogether, join forces, and make ourselves an energy superpower? He can say all he wants. He doesn't need this from Canada, doesn't need that from Canada, but it sure would be nice to have, wouldn't it? When are the adults going to get in the room and solve this? If August 1st comes and we have a great deal, I will give full credit to the Prime Minister and to the premiers who helped make that happen, and also the ministers. I know Minister LeBlanc in particular is working very hard behind the scenes. He's in Washington all the time trying to work out a deal. But if we don't get a deal, every one of these premiers and the prime minister owes us an election. They do. Because then we have to reset and decide how are we going to go forward now as a nation without the deal in place. Let's hear a little bit more from Doug Ford yesterday. Then I'm going to get to a little bit of the premiers speaking this morning.
I understand that's 9 out of across the country, 400 or so. So, but we're gonna work with them. We want everyone to have an opportunity. I want everyone to prosper. And when they're sitting there and they're living on diesel, and they don't have electricity, and Pikangikum's facing a fire, they don't have clean water. These are the things we're going to focus on, and we're going to support them.
When it comes to shoulder to shoulder with 2 of those leaders that are now suing you, do you think you have an issue with understanding Indigenous concerns?
Yeah, well, I talked to enough chiefs right across the country. I talked to the Grand Chief right across the country the other day that she's going to be coming here along with our Chief of Ontario. We have a great relationship with First Nations communities, and we're gonna make sure that they prosper like they've never had before. And the door is open for them. They're welcome to walk through that door and partner with the entire country and partner with Ontario to make their lives more prosperous than they've ever seen before. That's going to be their choice. I welcome them to make sure that they take advantage of the $3 billion. Not to mention treaty rights. After 150 years, the only premier in the history of this province that settled a $10 billion, I'm going to repeat that, $10 billion deal for treaty rights. That says it all. I take care of them, and I want to make sure they prosper. Anyways, we'll have an opportunity to...
All right, let's leave Premier Ford there. And he is right, by the way, about dealing with some treaty rights. That is good. I'm wondering, though, what if First Nations say no? We have a duty to consult. That's just the law. Premier Ford here is talking like all the chiefs agree. They all want to be part of it. And maybe there's a couple of people that are on the fence, but for the most part, everybody agrees they want to be prosperous. And I think that would be a very smart decision for our First Nations to make. But I'm also aware that it's not unanimous. What happens when some First Nations say, yeah, drill, baby, drill. Let's build some pipelines. We want a cut of that. Let's go. But other ones say, nope, we are good stewards of the environment and we don't think pipelines are appropriate and we don't think burning fossil fuels appropriate, so we're a no. Then what do? Do we have a contingency for that for when the First Nations themselves don't agree? It's an interesting scenario and we're not there yet, but that's something that's on my mind because it could happen. Now I want to fast forward to this morning. This is July 22nd. It was a memo of understanding signing between Premier Doug Ford from Ontario, Premier Scott Moe from Saskatchewan, and Premier Danielle Smith from Alberta. I'm going to play just a little bit of the Q&A here. Several questions came up involving the Prime Minister and more. Listen to this.
Hi there, Michael Sarabia with CPAC. The question is actually for you, Premier Ford. And I appreciate today's announcement has to do with pipelines and energy corridors, but given that amongst the regulations being pointed out is the EV mandate, what does today's announcement, how does that affect your past enthusiasm to develop battery plants in Ontario as well as have EVs manufactured in Ontario?
Well, I always believe I'm a big proponent of the market dictates. The market will dictate, not governments will dictate. We have to get rid of these mandates. The companies won't be able to meet their targets. Let's continue investing. I'm confident that eventually the EV sector per se will continue growing. But right now, the people are going to decide. But let's not slow down on building the battery plants and any other EV plants. But who knows this the best but the auto sector? And they'll determine that. But we're going to continue investing in the market itself.
I mean, that's a weird answer from Doug Ford. Get rid of the EV mandates. The manufacturers can't meet them, but we're still going to double down and keep going with these battery plants in Ontario. I don't think we're going to end up with these battery plants in Ontario, to be honest with you. It really seems like the play here by the Americans is to steal the Ontario auto sector. And if they can steal it, it's great for them. Then they make all their own cars. They'll have very cheap cars, and they'll sell them to us at a profit. It's not really that different from the way things go now, but it seems like they want to try and lure all of these plants that we stole from them back to America. We put out a ton of taxpayer dollars to go all in on these EV batteries, and then it turns out Canadians don't want them. And we're going to have to drop the mandate so that Canadians aren't forced to buy them. Why on earth we would double down on serious investments into these is beyond me. I mean, I really don't get it. And I also don't see the demand for EVs. I think we're hypocrites here in Canada when it comes to EVs. You know, we had an option. And what did we do? Put 100% tariff on Chinese-made EVs. 100% tariff. And because of that, China is now retaliating against us and our canola farmers and several other industries. We're facing tariffs right now because we imposed tariffs on China to try and protect the industry in Ontario for batteries that doesn't even exist yet. These factories aren't built. They're certainly not up and running. They're not producing batteries. They're not generating tax revenue. They're not employing people en masse. It's a weird industry. It's just doesn't seem to be happening. It's a bit of a failure to launch. And if the EV mandate is gone, I really don't see Canadians gravitating towards this expectation that we all have to have an electric vehicle by 2035. I just don't see it happening. I don't think people want that right now. And I'm fully aware that Canadians can't afford that right now. Here's a little bit more of that news conference.
I'll just add a couple things. I think Doug produces 1.2 million cars, and Canadians buy about 1.2 million cars. So we've, as a province, taken the leadership in saying we're going to prioritize fleet vehicles that are made and finished in Ontario. And there's some great options. There's light-duty vehicles, heavy-duty vehicles, there's hybrid vehicles. And so we would hope that others would look at it in the same way, that if the Americans are going to take a hostile approach against our auto industry, I think it's up to us to be supportive. When it comes to electric vehicles, we only have a very small percentage of electric vehicles that have been purchased in Alberta. And as I mentioned, if we were to try to meet the mandate in Alberta alone, we'd have to buy all of the low emissions vehicles currently being produced in Ontario, which is impossible for the entire country to achieve, which means this policy is forcing us to look outside of supporting for Ontario in order to be able to achieve it. And I guess the last thing I'd say is that we think that we're trying to build our hydrogen economy in Alberta. We've bought the Edmonton International Airport bought 100 Toyota Mirais, which is the passenger vehicle. We're doing a dual fuel pilot with the trucking industry. CP is building hydrogen locomotives in our province. We have hydrogen for home heating, hydrogen as well that we're looking for electricity. But I would love to see the Ontario manufacturers figure out a way that we could perhaps have a hydrogen combustion engine. I know Toyota is made here. And then that may be a way for us to reach zero emissions targets a different way. I think that we have to allow the market and innovators to be able to meet the needs of each individual marketplace. And so I'm hoping we can have a really constructive conversation with Ontario about that now. I've begun it as well with individuals with Toyota who've been in our province. And so let's just have a little more latitude to allow for the market to work and innovation to work. That's what I would say, and I think we can all benefit from that.
It's a good response from Premier Danielle Smith. Yeah, why don't we look into hydrogen? A lot of people speculate that hydrogen is really the next best thing. In the same way that the gasoline engine is just the global standard right now, hydrogen will be next, and these battery electric vehicles are probably not it. That was an intermediary step that I don't know that we should invest that much more into, to be honest with you, especially when hydrogen is coming. And it seems like it's a very popular proposition. I want to do just a little bit more. The premiers were asked a question about the prime minister. I'll leave it on this, then I'm going to get to the Freedom Convoy.
I'm wondering what you heard from Mark Carney last night and what you hope to hear from him today.
What I've heard consistently from Mark Carney is that he wants Canada to have energy dominance and be an energy superpower, and that he wants us to diversify our markets, starting with doing more trade with each other. That's what the MOU is about today, is how can we find a way to support each other, and then in addition to that, find a way to get to new markets. That's the only way I think that Canada will be able to have the security, the energy security we're looking for. And it's not just energy. Once we have those routes that are established and we can build out rail line and port infrastructure, that's great for food export, for fiber export, for manufactured goods export. So those are the things that I think that the provinces are taking the leadership on, and everything I've heard from Mark Carney seems to suggest he's supportive of that. He would demonstrate his great support if he would repeal or substantially revise the 9 bad laws that are impacting our investment climate. He hasn't done that yet, but as I've said, we're giving him some time to get into the role. He's got a new legislative session starting up in September, and we'll have a better idea of what kind of revisions he's going to make then.
Well, I know Prime Minister Carney, he wants to be one of the strongest economies in the G7, which we're confident we can do. But as Premier Smith said, we have to get rid of the regulatory burdens. That's what's holding us back. And when we do that, we can unleash the economic powerhouse Canada truly is, diversify our trade, build pipelines west, east, south, north, and get critical minerals out of the ground, not in 15 years, but within two years, get permitting happening a lot quicker. That's what's going to make sure that we're an economic powerhouse, build large infrastructure projects across the country as well. But we'll have a further discussion with Prime Minister Carney today, and we'll get into it a little deeper at the table.
Okay, well, there we've got it. Nothing really is done. We're still just waiting for the Prime Minister. We're waiting to see what the Prime Minister is going to do as far as building these infrastructure projects, as far as repealing some of the Trudeau laws that were so unpopular and so restrictive for Canada getting its product to market and making ourselves self-sufficient. The Prime Minister knows what he needs to do. Will he do it? When are we going to find out about this list of projects that we're going to move forward with? What are we waiting for? I can't be the only one wondering that. I don't think we need to give away our negotiating cards to Donald Trump, but I mean, there's got to be more for the Canadian people here. Just trust us is not working. It's not. There are so many people that are just about enough fed up that something's going to happen soon. I feel it. I know something's going to happen soon because people are at a breaking point. They see our government talking a big game, but it doesn't seem like anybody's doing anything. I want to know what comes out of this meeting of the First Ministers, and I want to know what the Prime Minister is going to do about it. Seems like the Prime Minister is under pressure from all the premiers to repeal the 9 bad laws, as Premier Smith calls them. Why is this an issue? Repeal them. Call back Parliament. There's nothing to say that Parliament can't sit until September. Cancel the vacation. We're in an emergency, right? This is an emergency. Then treat it like one. Stop treating the taxpayers like crap. We expect more. We want more. We're pissed off that our government is not doing anything right now except vacationing up north, playing golf. We want to see some action. So if any of you are listening, premiers, chiefs, prime ministers, cabinet ministers, we want to see some action. And I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of Canadians that are getting fed up here. Get something done. Let's see some progress. I'm going to move on now. I want to read you a series of statements via X from Tamara Leach. Quick history lesson. When the Canadian government was going gangbusters on COVID-19 restrictions, when they were just over the top with the restrictions. Some of the most restrictive policies in the world happened in Canada. Ontario closed schools more than any other jurisdiction on earth because we were so afraid of COVID-19. Well, there were some Canadians who'd had enough, and they created what was called the Freedom Convoy. That was a bunch of people that had had enough and wanted to express to our government in a peaceful way that they had had enough of what was being imposed on the Canadian people. And in hindsight, many of us can look back now and realize that what happened during COVID was straight up wrong. And a lot of it came from Justin Trudeau himself. I think Justin Trudeau needed to hear it from the people. I think it needed to get uncomfortable in Ottawa. So the truckers went there, and many, many regular Canadians, not truckers, also went to Ottawa and put on this protest. They would honk their horns all night. Some people said that's not peaceful when you're honking your horn at all hours. You can feel however you want to feel about that. I've certainly seen some protests in the last number of months here in Canada that were a lot worse than people honking their horns. It was a peaceful protest. No, they didn't leave. I thought they should have. I thought the Freedom Convoy would have been far more effective if they went on the first weekend, got all that support, fired it up again one more weekend after that, and then shut her down. But they stayed for quite a while. They did. And people in Ottawa, the residents, were quite angry. And I guess I don't really blame them. If I had to cross through that every day and didn't agree with their point, I would be livid. So I get that. The organizers of this protest, though, ended up on the radar of the government because the government wanted to send a message that you can't have that kind of dissent in Canada. You can't protest against the government like that. And as you recall, they did some pretty wild stuff. Freezing the bank accounts of people that were participating in the protest and even people who donated money to this cause. They froze people's bank accounts. Completely crazy. They ended up sending in the police, and it got very, very rough as they were trying to disband that protest. A couple of people got arrested, and they were called the organizers, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber. In the end, they were charged with mischief. Basically, it was mischief. There was a few other little things there, but this is basically a mischief charge. We now know the Crown, who has wasted millions and millions and millions of dollars prosecuting this case, wants 7 years in jail for Tamara Leach and 8 years in jail for Chris Barber. I mean, I think this is bananas, if you ask me. Just I'm not opposed to a punishment of some sort if our courts have looked at all angles of this situation and decided what they did was a crime. There should be a punishment if there was a crime. But this is bananas, especially when you look at the state of our justice system now and the amount of serious and violent crimes that are happening, and people get a slap on the wrist. Yesterday, Tamara Leach tweeted out, "Late yesterday afternoon, I received a copy of the Crown's materials for our upcoming sentencing hearing, and I can confirm they are seeking a 7-year prison sentence for me and an additional year for Chris Barber." Well, I'm not the only one who thinks that kind of sentencing is completely preposterous. And it is. It really, really is. Yesterday, the leader of the official opposition here in Canada, Pierre Poilievre, sent out a tweet about this. And I want to read you what Pierre said because I think this is important. He said, "Let's get this straight. While rampant, violent offenders are released hours after their most recent charges and anti-Semitic rioters vandalize businesses, terrorize daycares, and block traffic without any consequences, the Crown wants 7 years prison time for a simple charge of mischief for Leach and Barber. How is that justice?" How is that justice? To me, it seems like the government will not tolerate any dissent. And we know that about Justin Trudeau. And we also know that a lot of Justin Trudeau's folks are still in government. They got rid of Trudeau because he was dead weight, but they brought in Carney, and those same people are still there. A lot of the people that dealt with the Freedom Convoy are still there. Chrystia Freeland laughing as she froze people's bank accounts, joking about sending in tanks. The government was completely out of control during the Freedom Convoy, and they really tried to stoke the flames. It didn't need to be as bad as it was. We could probably right a wrong right now with a simple conviction and no penalty. That's probably what would be appropriate here for Tamara Lich and Chris Barber. But no, the government wants to send a message that if you protest, even if it's peacefully here in Canada, you will face severe consequences. This is a political sentence, if you ask me. Do you know how much our taxpayer money got spent trying to prosecute these two people? And in fairness here, there are a lot of people who feel that they were wrong for what they did, that Freedom Convoy should have never been allowed. I don't even disagree with that. That was a failure of a lot of different things, including the Ottawa Police and the OPP and the RCMP and the Parliamentary Protective Service. I'll say it. That was a failure of a lot of different people. The Freedom Convoy should not have gone on as long as it did. I, again, think it would have been much more effective if it were shorter. Send a message, and then let's see what the government does with that message. But go home. During the Freedom Convoy, I was calling for them. Go home. I was begging them. You've made your point. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that you're standing up for people who feel like they don't have a voice and do want to oppose these draconian restrictions from our government. But you got to go home. Enough's enough. Well, they kept going. And maybe there does need to be a consequence for that. 7 years in prison is absolutely bananas. Millions and millions and millions of taxpayer dollars spent on this prosecution, and for no good reason, because it doesn't line up with the rest of what we're seeing in the justice system, where people are committing violent crimes and getting released the same day. Very few consequences in the end for most of these violent criminals. Tamara and Chris were not violent. I mean, we can debate the horn honking thing, but by and large, this was a peaceful protest. Inconvenient, sure. Embarrassing and awkward for the government, absolutely. It went on way, way, way too long. Sure, I agree with that. But they had a right to be there, and they had a right to protest. We all do. The government going for 7 years on this, I think is sick. You want to punish these people and send a message that no, you will not protest against this government. We're going to do whatever we want, and you're going to sit there and shut up and take it. And if you don't want to do that, we'll see you in court, and we'll take away your banking platform, and we will put you on watch lists, and you won't be allowed to fly, and all of the other things that the government has done to these people. They seem to want to make Tamara Lich and Chris Barber martyrs. That's what it seems like. I'm going to tell you, and I'm not the one who is saying this for the first time. I've heard now a number of pundits point this out, that if I'm being honest and I'm looking at this situation, I think the government is going down a very dangerous path trying to hand out ridiculous sentences to Tamara and Chris here. This could get violent. Not the actual protest itself. That was a peaceful protest. I'm kind of afraid of what's going to happen when people find out that Tamara and Chris got 7 years in jail, if that is what the judge agrees to. If they do 7 years, I think there's going to be rioting. I'm worried that there's going to be civil unrest, and I'm worried that people are going to get hurt. It doesn't need to come to that. Point proven on both sides. Freedom Convoy, you made your point. You were there too long. You should have left sooner, but all right, here we are. Apparently now you've broken the law. Okay. If you're convicted, you should have a consequence. But we can also make it more of a symbolic consequence. I don't know, 1 day in jail, more than they've already done, because they were in custody for a long time throughout this trial and awaiting trial. We don't need to take a victory lap here and try and send that horrible message. 7, 8 years in jail, absolutely preposterous. And it makes a total mockery of our justice system, because every single person listening can agree that there are way, way, way more bigger fish to fry out there, and we're not taking those seriously at all. Not in any way. Last thing I got to cover on this episode, and this one is going to involve a little bit of language. I'm going to play for you some audio from the son of former U.S. President Joe Biden. Hunter Biden, a lot of people think, has basically been the president for 4 years. His dad is basically incapacitated. Joe Biden is not competent enough to be president right now. Even the networks that were fully in on Joe Biden getting a second term can now acknowledge, yeah, he's not qualified to be president, not with the mental state that he's in, the cognitive state that he's in. A lot of people think Hunter Biden was basically calling the shots. Well, let's find out who Hunter Biden is. He's doing a number of interviews right now, podcasts and things like that. And there's some very colorful language as he talks about very different topics. And I'm going to try and cover as many of them as I can. Here is Hunter Biden talking about migrants.
We sit here and we talk about the one guy because there's a clear legal path to being able to get him back. What about all those other people? Am I not supposed to feel for someone? Am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. Fuck you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your fucking table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your fucking garden? Who do you think is here by the fucking sheer fucking just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the fucking criminals? White men in America are 45 more times likely to commit a fucking violent crime than an immigrant. And the media says, well, you got David Axelrod and, Rahm fucking Emanuel. So fucking smart, Rahm Emanuel. And so we got to understand that these people are really mad. And we got to appeal to these white voters. Rahm, the only people that fucking appealed to those fucking white voters was Joe Biden, 81 years old. And he got 81 million votes, and he did not because he appeased their fucking Trumpian sense, but because he challenged it. And he said, you can be an 81-year-old Catholic from fucking Scranton that doesn't understand it, but still has empathy for transgender people and immigrants. And then nobody said, oh, Joe Biden's going to turn us into a socialist state, no matter how much they said it. But these guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to lead. I say, fuck you. How are we getting those people back from fucking El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the fucking president of El Salvador and say, you either fucking send them back or I'm going to fucking invade. It's a fucking crime.
This guy wants to be president. He thinks he can carry on his father's legacy and occupy the White House in this sense. You heard him, what he just said, right? By the way, let me just point out, because he doesn't seem to understand. He said, oh, well, white Caucasian males are the ones most likely to commit a violent crime way more than the migrant. Okay, but the white Caucasian male has a right to be there because they're a citizen, and the migrant doesn't have a right to be there because they snuck in illegally. That's the difference. We don't kick out citizens. We kick out people who aren't supposed to be there. So that was one from Hunter Biden. He also had some very interesting things to say about some liberal icons and how they tried to screw over his dad. Listen to this.
And you would have the Speaker Emeritus that would say, well, I'm going to leave it up to, but I don't know. And they had already made a decision. They had clearly made a decision. And when I say they, I mean the speaker. And, I heard Alexander Pelosi say something, call my like, put your big girl pants on to my mom or something. And I kind of feel like saying, who the fuck do you think you are? I would never speak about your mom that way. Yeah. I would never speak about your father that way. I would never insult your parents that way. Even to this day, I would never.
Okay, there is Hunter telling a little bit of the story about how Nancy Pelosi orchestrated that takeover by Kamala Harris, kicking Joe Biden out of the presidential race so that Kamala could jump in. You just heard it from Hunter Biden. This was a thing. This wasn't organic. There was no giant movement to elect Kamala Harris. Nancy Pelosi realized we're going to lose with Biden, so we need to call the audible, put Kamala Harris in. They did the same thing in Canada with Trudeau and Carney. It's a play that they've implemented here. Let's hear a little bit more from Hunter Biden. This is him lambasting more liberal icons.
Opinions, but fuck him. Fuck him and everybody around him. I don't have to be fucking nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Fucking George Clooney is not a fucking actor. He is a fucking, I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como, and he's great friends with Barack Obama. Fuck you. What do you have to do with fucking anything? Why do I have to fucking listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his fucking life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the fucking New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 fucking years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of fucking David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior fucking speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made $40-50 million off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history, how to have a better midterm election than anybody in history, and how to garner more votes than any president that has ever run. And they're going to replace their judgment for his.
Not to mention...
Who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper...
My mom or something? I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
For real, though. I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No.
By the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news. And beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to shit after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with.
I'll leave it there. Hunter Biden taking out anybody who has tried to take a shot at his dad over the years. And you know, the son in me and the dad in me, I respect it. You want to come after my dad? I'll come after you. I appreciate that. I think it's great that he's standing up for his dad, but wow, was that ever wild? Hearing him talk that way about Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, George Clooney, the higher ups in the Democratic Party. Just crazy to actually hear that coming from him. It's almost like you guys went after my dad, and I don't care if I burn down the entire Democratic Party. I will make sure that I get retribution for Joe. Real interesting stuff here. Friends, thanks for listening today. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Silent Date Guy. That's going to be back on my radar tomorrow because I did get some info on what happened this past weekend. I'm also going to be talking about our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, meeting with the premiers today. Will we learn anything? Will we feel like anything got done after today? We'll find out tomorrow. Have yourselves a great one, and I'll catch you right back here in less than 24 hours with more Scott Fox After 9. I'll leave you with Pat James and the whole truth. Hey now.